Your thyroid gland needs iodine in order to make thyroid hormones. So if you are hypothyroid, so you have an underactive thyroid, you may think that it's a good idea to supplement with an iodine supplement, or eat more food that's high in iodine, because then you have enough iodine and your thyroid gland should be able to make more thyroid hormones, right? Well, maybe not. The problem is that iodine is very similar to, like, if you think about the story of Goldilocks. And too little iodine and your thyroid gland may not have enough to make thyroid hormones. But too much iodine and you can actually trigger thyroid autoimmunity. That could be a problem. Research have shown that excessive levels of iodine or excessive intake of iodine can actually be a trigger for thyroid autoimmunity. And Hashis is one of the most common reasons that you are struggling with an underactive thyroid. So let's dive into the actual research. Now, in this study, where they've looked at people who actually consume a lot of iodine, and they've noticed that there was an increase in thyroid autoantibodies, which is actually the marker that they use to determine if your immune system is attacking your thyroid gland. In areas where people take excessive iodine, 25% of people had an increase in these thyroid autoantibodies, compared to, if you look at iodine deficient areas, where just 13% of people actually had autoantibodies. So it seems like if you are taking more iodine, you have a higher likelihood of actually developing thyroid antibodies, and therefore your likelihood to increase to develop Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Iodine is extremely important for growth and development, to the extent that many countries have actually legislated that iodine be added to, like, for example, salt. So if you go to your local grocer, you will find iodized salt on the shelf. But what impact does this actually have? Are you in a country that has sufficient iodine in your food supply, or should you be worried? Well, there was a study done in 2020 where they looked at exactly the iodine status at a country level. And what they have found is that 124 countries have actually legislated that iodine be added to salt, and an additional 21 countries have actually voluntarily added iodine to their food supply. What they also have found is that 21 countries actually remained deficient in iodine, with 13 countries having excessive intakes of iodine. Now here's an image from the research that actually shows the countries that have excessive iodine intake, which are the countries highlighted in red, and then the countries that are grey has adequate intake of iodine, and the countries that's more coloured in purple has an insufficient iodine intake. Now, if you are struggling with Hashimoto's or an underactive thyroid, which you probably are by watching this video, you may know that iodine is a very controversial topic in the thyroid world. There are people who tell you to take huge amounts of iodine, and then there are people that actually say stay completely away. Well, my personal approach is to limit my iodine intake. You, in your specific scenario, might have a very different approach, and always speak to your doctor about iodine supplementation before you start taking iodine, especially if you have Hashimoto's. Now, how do you know if you are actually at risk of having excessive levels of iodine? So firstly, if you are eating a lot of seafood, specifically that contains seaweed, like a lot of sushi, then you may be at risk of having excessive levels of iodine. Other food sources include cod, obviously your iodized salt, Greek yogurt, oysters, eggs, liver, and then interestingly, prunes and lima beans. On top of that, you may think that because you have hypothyroidism, taking some of these supplements that are specifically targeted to support hypothyroidism and support your thyroid, that it might be a good idea to take some of these supplements. I want to encourage you to take note of the iodine intake that you're taking generally. Now, the recommended daily allowance for iodine is about 150 micrograms for adults, both male and female. But what happens if you take more than that? In fact, there was some research done about this impact of excessive levels of iodine. And the study looked at 62 individuals who had what they call endemic goitre. And what is awesome is that this was a randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind study. So half of the participants, so 31 participants, actually received an excessive amount of iodine, meaning 500 micrograms of iodine. Now, compared to the 150, which is the RDA, that's a huge amount of iodine. And what they found is that out of this 31 people, 6 people actually had an increase in thyroid autoantibodies. So that equates to 20% of people developed thyroid antibodies. So taking iodine supplements may actually be a double-edged sword, especially if you're struggling with hypothyroidism and you don't really know yet why you have hypothyroidism. And the research shown that 95% of people, or 95% of cases of hypothyroidism, is due to Hashimoto's. So I really want to encourage you, test your antibody levels and check your iodine levels. So how can you actually do that? Well, read the labels and see if what you are taking is a lot more than the 150 milligrams that is generally recommended. So take note of your thyroid supplements and like your general vitamin and mineral supplement. Just tally them all together. And if you eat sushi and seafood on a regular basis, then just maybe have your iodine levels checked. Speaking of having your iodine level checked, right, now there doesn't seem to be a very reliable test to actually have your iodine levels checked. The most common one is what they call the urine test. Now the one approach is where you collect all your urine over a 24-hour period and then it gets analyzed. Well, I don't think I want to do that. The other one is a urine spot test, and then they actually look at the creatine level that's in your urine and compare that to the function of your liver, and then they do some analysis on that. And then there's the iodine blood test. Now, what I've read is that the iodine blood test will actually only tell you if you have excessive levels of iodine. So even if it shows your levels of iodine are normal or low, it may not mean that it's normal or low. You know, it may state it's normal when it's actually low. But it is a useful indication for high levels of iodine. So it's maybe something you want to consider. But of course, always speak with your doctor about the best option if you actually want to have your iodine levels checked. If you are worried that you have had exposure to iodine, like you had to go for some medical treatment that you had to take iodine. So what is the result of all of this? Be careful of iodine. So take note of your iodine intake, because you don't want to risk, especially if you already have hypothyroidism, to increase your iodine levels that you actually may develop autoantibodies to your thyroid gland, and therefore your likelihood of developing Hashimoto's is actually increasing. So take note of your iodine levels, and if you are worried about excessive iodine, then speak to your doctor about the option to actually have it tested. All right, that's it from me today. Take care and we'll speak soon.